Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something
Yeah.
really interesting, biomanufacturing in the U.S. And we have this really great report from the White House,
Right.
Office of Science and Technology Policy. This report was written in response to President Biden's executive order on advancing the bioeconomy.
Hmm.
And we're going to be taking a deep dive into this report
Sounds good.
to really understand what it has to say about a current state of biomanufacturing in the U.S., as well as the potential for this industry to grow in the future. And the report covers a ton of interesting stuff. We're going to be talking about how big the bioeconomy actually already is in the U.S., like right now. And it's surprisingly large.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about how biomanufacturing can be used to address some of the biggest challenges that we're facing as a society, like climate change and supply chain vulnerabilities. And we're going to talk about how biomanufacturing can be used to create new jobs and boost the U.S. economy.
Yeah. So let's jump in.
Yeah. So before we get too far, I think it would be good to kind of define what we're even talking about here. So what is biomanufacturing?
Well, in the simplest terms, it's harnessing biological systems to create products on a large scale.
Biological systems.
Yeah. So that could be anything from plants to microbes like bacteria or yeast or even algae.
So kind of like how we've been using microbes to produce insulin?
Exactly. That's a classic example.
Okay.
But we've come a long way since then. And now we're using biomanufacturing to create everything from sustainable jet fuel to even growable cement.
Growable cement. Now that sounds interesting. How does...
It all comes down to the incredible advancements we've made in biotechnology that allow us to engineer these organisms at a really tiny level. Essentially, we're programming them to become these miniature factories churning out valuable products.
So we're tapping into nature's own manufacturing power.
Exactly.
That's really fascinating.
It is, and it has applications across so many different sectors, from health and energy to agriculture, and even things like construction.
The possibilities seem almost endless.
They really are.
But to really understand this field, we need to know what drives it.
Right.
Like, what makes a biomanufacturing company succeed?
Well, the report highlights 4 key drivers.
Okay.
They are economic factors, technological advancements, infrastructure, and workforce availability.
Okay, so economic factors, I get that.
Yeah.
Things like access to funding, market demand, regulations, trade agreements, all that stuff that influences how companies operate.
Right, exactly.
What about technology?
Well, this is really the engine of progress.
Okay.
This is where the big breakthroughs are happening.
So like new discoveries, new inventions.
Exactly. New techniques, new ways to manipulate organisms and extract the products we need.
Okay.
It's constantly evolving.
But even with the right tech and the money, you still need somewhere to do all of this.
That's where infrastructure comes in.
Okay.
You need the facilities, the equipment, the whole system to actually scale up production from lab to factory.
And is that a problem in the U.S.?
It can be. The report actually flags the lack of pilot scale. Biomanufacturing facilities is a major roadblock, especially for startups. These facilities kind of bridge the gap between small-scale lab work and full-blown commercial production.
So it's like a proving ground.
Exactly. They allow companies to test and refine their products to figure out if they can really work at scale.
But building these facilities is expensive.
It is, especially for smaller companies that are just starting out.
So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah. You need to prove your product works to get funding. But you need funding to build the facilities to prove it works.
Oof, that's tricky.
It is. But this is where government initiatives can really make a difference.
Okay, so we've got the money, we've got the tech, we've got the facilities, but we also need the people.
Right. Workforce availability is crucial.
So we need scientists and engineers.
Absolutely. But it goes beyond that.
Right.
We need technicians, data analysts, people who can manage these facilities and keep them running smoothly.
So it's a whole ecosystem with all these different pieces working together to make biomanufacturing successful. So what's the government doing to support this growing industry?
Well, there are a number of exciting initiatives already underway.
Okay, let's hear about them. So let's get into those initiatives. What are some of the exciting things?
Well, one that really stands out is BioMade.
BioMade?
Yeah, it's a manufacturing innovation institute backed by the Department of Defense. And they're focused on creating a network of pilot-scale biomanufacturing facilities across the U.S.
So they're directly addressing that infrastructure gap that we were just talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a huge step because it gives companies, especially startups, that crucial testing ground They need to prove their concepts
Oh,
and attract investment.
so they can scale up
Right.
and actually bring their products to market.
Exactly.
That's great. And it sounds like they're not just building facilities.
No, they're not.
They're also investing in research.
They're pouring millions into research projects focused on things like sustainable food sources,
Okay.
more efficient processing techniques, even figuring out how to utilize different types of biomass.
Biomass.
Yeah, the raw materials
Okay.
that go into these processes.
So it's all connected.
It is all connected.
They're really thinking about the whole picture.
Exactly. They're trying to build a robust and sustainable bioeconomy.
Okay. And it sounds like the DoD is really committed to this whole thing.
They are.
Yeah.
They recognize the importance of biomanufacturing, not just for national security, but also for the economy.
Okay. And they have another program too, right?
Yeah, the Defense Bioindustrial Manufacturing Program, or DBIMP for short.
DB, what's that one about?
Well, DBIMP is focused on actually building a domestic bioindustrial manufacturing base.
Okay. So they're not just funding research.
Right. They want to see actual factories being built, products being made.
Okay. And how are they doing that?
Well, they're awarding funding to companies
Yeah.
that are committed to building new biomanufacturing facilities in the U.S.
So they're really putting their money where their mouth is.
They are. They're serious about making this happen.
It's great to see that kind of commitment.
It is. It shows that they understand the potential of this industry.
And it's not just the DoD.
Right.
Other agencies are getting involved too.
Yeah, the Department of Energy is another big player,
Okay.
especially through their Energy Earthshots initiative. They've dedicated millions to clean energy technologies.
Okay.
And many of those rely on biomanufacturing.
So it's a cross-agency effort.
It is,
Yeah.
which is really important because it shows that this isn't just a one-off thing. This is a national priority.
Yeah, it feels like everyone is recognizing how important this is.
They are.
Yeah.
And the DOE's involvement goes beyond just funding research.
Oh, okay.
They're also supporting the scale-up of promising biofuel and bioproduct technologies. They're working on developing new biocatalysts and microorganisms. For industrial use, they're even exploring ways to convert things like CO2 gases and algae into valuable products.
That's really interesting, like turning waste into something useful.
Exactly. That's the beauty of biomanufacturing.
Okay, so they're involved in research and development, but are they also providing direct support to companies?
Oh, yeah. Their loans program office has announced loan guarantees for 3 major biomanufacturing projects across the country.
Wow, loan guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge.
It is. It's a game changer for these companies.
Yeah.
Because it de-risks their investments and makes it easier to secure private funding.
So the government is really helping to create a more supportive environment for biomanufacturing businesses.
Exactly. And then we have the Department of Health and Human Services. HHS. They're focused on strengthening the pharmaceutical supply chain.
Right, because we need to be able to produce essential medicines.
Absolutely. Especially in times of crisis.
Okay, and how are they doing that?
They've been awarding funding to companies to scale up production of essential medicines and key starting materials.
So it's about ensuring a secure and resilient supply of these vital products.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the DoD, the DOE, HHS, all these agencies are really stepping up.
They are.
To support biomanufacturing, but all of this manufacturing requires raw materials.
That's a good point. Where's all the biomass coming from?
Right, where's all the biomass coming from?
Well, that's where the USDA comes in.
The USDA.
Yeah, they've been busy bolstering the domestic biomass supply chain with a focus on sustainable and responsible sourcing.
So making sure that we have enough biomass to fuel this whole biomanufacturing engine.
Exactly. And they're not just focused on traditional feedstocks like corn and soybeans.
Okay.
They're also exploring new sources like algae.
Algae.
Yeah, and agricultural waste.
Okay, so trying to diversify the supply chain.
Exactly. And make it more sustainable.
So laying the groundwork for a truly sustainable bioeconomy.
That's the goal.
But even with all this government support, ultimately consumer demand is what drives adoption.
You're right.
Right.
People need to actually want to buy these products.
So how do we get people excited about bio-based products?
Well, the government is promoting their use in a few different ways.
Okay.
First, they're leading by example.
Okay.
The USDA's Bio-Preferred program requires federal agencies to give preference to bio-based products when making purchases.
Okay, so they're using their buying power
to
create demand.
Right. And they're also working to educate consumers about the benefits of bio-based products, empowering them to make informed choices.
So it's about raising awareness.
Yeah, and making sure that people understand
Yeah.
the value of these products.
Okay, but with all this talk about bioeconomy, how do we actually measure it?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It can be a bit complex
Yeah.
to define and measure the bioeconomy,
Oh, okay.
but luckily the government is on it.
Okay.
For starters, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST.
NIST.
Yeah, they've created a bioeconomy
Lexicon?
lexicon. It's like a standardized dictionary of terms to ensure that everyone is...
Okay, so we're all speaking the same language.
Exactly.
What about the economic impact?
Well, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, or BEA,
EE.
yeah, they've been tasked with figuring out how to formally measure the size of the U.S. bioeconomy.
Okay, so we can actually see how much it's contributing to the economy.
Exactly. They're exploring the creation of a satellite account.
Okay.
Which would give us a detailed breakdown of the economic contributions of these industries.
Okay, so we can track things like job creation and GDP growth.
Exactly.
So you can see the tangible benefits of investing in this sector.
Exactly. And the USDA is also revising industry and product codes, which will lead to even more accurate and detailed economic analysis.
So we're really building the data infrastructure we need.
We are.
To track the progress of this emerging field.
It's all about making informed decisions and ensuring that the bioeconomy continues to grow.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the U.S., but this is a global movement, right?
It is. Biomanufacturing is happening all over the world.
And is it a collaborative effort, or are we competing?
Well, it's a bit of both.
Okay.
There's definitely competition. But the report emphasizes that international collaboration is key.
Okay, so we need to work together.
Yeah. No single country can achieve that projected $30 trillion global bioeconomy alone.
So what is the U.S. doing to foster international collaboration?
Well, for starters, they're engaging with international partners to promote biomanufacturing and support its development in other countries, both allies and developing nations.
So it's about sharing knowledge and resources.
It is the National Science Foundation, or NSF.
NSF.
Yeah, they've established several global centers focused on accelerating innovation in the bioeconomy.
Okay, and what do these centers do?
Well, they bring together researchers from all over the world to collaborate on projects that address shared challenges and opportunities.
So it's a global network of brilliant minds working together.
Exactly.
Are there other examples of this kind of collaboration?
Yeah, there are initiatives like the Biopharma Coalition.
Yeah.
Or Bio5 for short.
Bio5.
Yeah, they're focused on building secure biopharmaceutical supply chains through international partnerships.
So it's about working together to ensure a stable and reliable supply of essential medicines.
Exactly, especially during times of crisis.
So the U.S. is taking a multi-pronged approach to international cooperation.
Yes, from research collaboration to strategic partnerships for global health security.
And are they also thinking about sustainability?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The report emphasizes the importance of aligning biomanufacturing policy with global climate goals, such as the Paris Agreement.
Okay, so promoting the use of bio-based products to help achieve those targets.
Exactly. It's about working with international partners to develop solutions that benefit both the environment and the economy.
So it's a win-win.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the basics of biomanufacturing, the different government initiatives, and the importance of international collaboration. But this report goes beyond just describing the current landscape.
Yeah.
It actually offers concrete recommendations.
It does.
Future.
It lays out a roadmap
for
how the U.S. can further expand its biomanufacturing capacity and maintain its global leadership in this field.
And how many recommendations do they have?
11.
11. That's quite a list.
It is. It shows how comprehensive their thinking is.
Okay, let's hear about these recommendations. Okay, so 11 actions.
11 key actions.
To really push biomanufacturing to the next level.
To the next level, that's right.
What are some of the things they recommend?
Well, one of the first things they highlight is leveraging federal procurement programs even further.
Okay, we talked about the BioPreferred program.
Exactly.
So they want to expand that.
They want to make it even easier for government agencies to choose bio-based products when they're making purchasing decisions.
So using the government's buying power to drive demand.
Exactly.
And it's not just the federal government, right?
Yeah, they also want to encourage state and local governments and even private companies to adopt similar practices.
So it's about creating a bigger market.
Exactly. A more widespread market.
For these bio-based products. Okay, and what about support for the companies themselves?
Well, the report suggests a more tailored approach to incentives.
Tailored how so?
Well, recognizing that a small startup might need different kinds of support than a large corporation.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So they're looking at ways to create specific programs to help different types of biomanufacturing companies.
And what kind of programs are we talking about?
Well, for example, they're considering ways to incentivize the use of U.S.-based contract manufacturing organizations.
Okay, so these are companies that can help smaller companies with production. Exactly.
And so it's about creating a support system.
Right. A whole ecosystem.
To help these companies succeed.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got support for the companies. We've got the government buying bio-based products. What else is on their list?
Well, they also talk a lot about sustainability.
Okay.
They really want to make sure that biomanufacturing is part of the solution to climate change.
Right, not part of the problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do they recommend doing that?
Well, one key recommendation is to integrate biomanufacturing with the clean energy economy.
So using renewable energy.
Yeah, things like solar and wind power.
Okay.
And they also talk about carbon capture technologies and green hydrogen.
So making sure these production processes are as clean as possible.
Exactly.
Okay. And we talked about infrastructure?
We did. The report actually goes a step further.
Okay.
They call for the creation of a distributed network of biomanufacturing infrastructure across the U.S.
So instead of concentrating everything in a few big hubs,
they want to see a more decentralized approach.
Exactly. They want to make it easier for companies in different regions to access the facility and resources they need.
So spreading the benefits of this industry more evenly across the country.
Exactly.
And of course, we can't forget about the people.
The workforce.
Yeah.
The report stresses the need to both expand and diversify the talent pool.
So we need more people.
Yeah.
And we need people from all different backgrounds.
Absolutely.
Okay, and how do they recommend doing that?
Well, they recommend investing in education and training programs. Apprenticeships. And fostering partnerships between industry and academia.
So it's about creating clear pathways for people to enter this field.
Exactly.
And they also talk about developing industry-recognized credentials.
They do.
And competency models.
Yeah, so that workers have the skills and knowledge they need to succeed.
It's about building a strong and adaptable workforce. Okay, and all of this is happening as technology is rapidly advancing.
Right.
So are there any recommendations related to research and development?
There are. They call for continued investment in R&D. Particularly in areas like modeling and simulation. Which can help companies predict scale-up requirements and optimize their processes.
So they can be more efficient.
Exactly.
And they also mentioned something about modular biomanufacturing systems.
You did? Well, imagine them like building blocks. You can assemble these systems in different configurations to create customized production systems.
So you can tailor the system to the specific product you're making.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It makes biomanufacturing much more flexible and adaptable.
And they also talk about developing biomanufacturing standards.
They do.
So creating a common set of guidelines and best practices so that everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, it's about ensuring quality and safety and efficiency.
And of course, we can't forget about sustainability.
Absolutely.
This has to be done in a way that's good for the planet.
Exactly.
Okay. So what are their recommendations?
Well, they encourage the use of sustainable feedstocks and manufacturing practices. Minimizing environmental impact, conserving energy, reducing waste.
So it's about creating a truly sustainable system that benefits everyone.
Absolutely.
So this report really paints a compelling picture.
It does.
Of a future where biomanufacturing is a major force.
It is a vision of a future.
In the U.S. economy.
Where biomanufacturing is a key driver of innovation, economic growth, job creation, and a more sustainable way of life.
It's exciting.
It is.
To think about all the possibilities.
Yeah, it's a field that has the potential to really transform our world.
So, to our listeners out there, why should they care about biomanufacturing?
Because it's not just some niche industry. It affects all of us. It affects the medicines we take, the clothes we wear, the fuel that powers our cars, even the buildings we live and work in.
Wow, so it's already all around us.
It is.
And it's only going to get bigger.
Exactly.
So how can our listeners learn more?
Well, I encourage everyone to check out the full report from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy.
Okay.
It's publicly available, and it's full of fascinating details and insights.
And be sure to share your thoughts with us online using #TheDeepDive.
We want to hear what you think.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive. Until then, stay curious.